It's time to get sexy on Secular Sexuality.
I never get tired of this music, do you?
Never do. Never do. Keep waiting for it to happen.
I wish Eric would talk to me like that.
Right?
Oh.
It's the goods.
Well, welcome to Secular Sexuality. I am Megan Bonner. With me, of course, is Christy Powell.
Howdy.
And today we have a very special guest. With us is Matt Dillahunty. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Weird.
Weird?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm happy to come on and do this, but it's like a sex show. And I'm like, of all the areas where I don't have expertise.
I don't know. You're pulling off that jacket.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you fit in quite nicely.
I'm dope.
I can't say anything. So today, our main topic is going to be about the new regulations for social media channels in an attempt to stop sex trafficking. But it appears to maybe have some consequences that were not intended and are somewhat dire.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone from sex workers to people just wanting to go out on a date, queer folks, people who are in communities regarding breast cancer. I mean, all kinds of different people are being affected by these new laws, which are seemingly well-intentioned, perhaps not. We know that oftentimes politicians like to sneak things in by saying, but think of the children.
Right.
And we do, of course. You know, we think of the children.
Of course.
But yeah, these laws seem to be really problematic. So I'm excited to get into, delving into all of that.
The meat of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first, up on the community corkboard, we have on December 23rd, the Atheist Experience is going to be a clip show hosted by Mr. Atheist and a few other guest hosts. I believe the choosing of the clips has closed, and so you can no longer get your clips in. Let's see here. The ACA has no longer produced a newsletter. It is now a full-fledged magazine. Ooh. And it looks beautiful. We were just packing some envelopes earlier to send out to everyone, and it is just beautiful.
And shockingly, none of us brought one in to hold up.
I know, but
somebody
there we go.
Yeah,
See, there's the digital. And there is...
Look at that.
The beautiful magazine. It's so wonderful.
That is quite nice.
It is. And I think you and I have a couple pieces in there, don't we?
Yeah. I got to jump in there. It was a good time.
And will we be maybe seeing a bit more of you in the newsletter to come? In the magazine now?
It's been debated. We're in negotiations right now. Yeah, so currently as a volunteer, I'm being paid nothing, and I'm trying to talk them up to $0. So, we're in that process right now. I'm working with my manager.
Your people are talking to our people.
Right,
and
naturally.
Okay. Yeah, our people are talking to our people, and it's all getting sorted out.
It's a good time.
Okay.
See, when you asked if you were going to be seeing more of him in the magazine, I went completely in a different direction.
Not that kind of magazine.
Granted,
or
yes.
Is it?
Ooh, well, hey, we did talk about spanking.
Yeah, it's a nice little feature for anybody who's been curious about just why the hell people want to tie each other up and hit each other. It's a good time, but when you put it in those terms, it's a little confusing. So we try to unpack that a little bit. I hope you guys will take a read and take a look at it.
So with that, I think let's get into... Hello, Matt.
Hi.
How are you?
Weird.
Still
just
weird?
like, yeah, I'm better now, though. It's all right.
Oh, okay. So we asked you to come on, and you so graciously agreed.
Yeah, because I say, no. I'm very selective about what programs I do, and I wanted to be on this one in particular.
Really? Why?
Lots of reasons. So really, overall, I'm just incredibly proud and encouraged by what the ACA is doing, producing more shows that cover a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because I was at a club the other night and was talking with a young woman, and the "what do you do" for a living thing came up, as it always does. And I was like, I do lectures and debates and an internet show and magic shows, blah, blah. And she couldn't, we talked about me the time I did the show in drag. And she wouldn't believe me, so I had to pull up a picture. And so we hadn't discussed what type of show I do. And so it pops up, and it's, here's the Atheist Experience, and here's Matt and drag and everything else. And she goes, oh my gosh, you look awesome. So basically what you're saying is your job is to bash Jesus. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just go with it because I don't want to have a debate right here. But yeah, I bash Jesus.
I do this for a living,
drag.
not for free.
Yeah, in drag. Well, actually, this I do for free.
Well, yeah.
All the shows I do for free.
Yeah. It's a good time and it's a good reason, I think.
I'm excited. I have no idea. I know some of the stuff we might talk about. I know some stuff I might talk about. I'm just excited.
And we never know what crazy questions our callers might bring up.
Ooh,
so if
yes.
you are looking for your opportunity to shock, scintillate, and surprise, those lines are open now.
512-686-0279. Again, that is 512-686-0279. Don't forget, call now and you get a free Cupid doll. No, you don't. So, Christy, did you want to take us into our main topic here, or did you want me to do my rage quit early?
Well, yeah, it's a little early in the day to get all worked up, but I am very curious. I saw you very passionately taking notes as you were going through that article. So yeah, I'd love to hear what you've got for us.
Okay. So I was, someone else here at the ACA decided to introduce me to the transformed wife, which just is not gold.
It's the best corner of the internet?
It is the absolute best corner. So this is a Christian woman who has taken it upon herself to teach other Christian women how to be properly godly and be a good wife. And the transformed wife. Her claim is that, her marriage was kind of shitty, and then, she started obeying God's word and laws and teaching other women to do so. And ever since, her marriage has just been so blissful. And she runs a blog, and with wonderful blog articles such as "Pursue a Spouse, Not a Career," which
seems like a reasonable goal.
This is extra amusing for me because I go antique shopping a lot, and I found a book. It's old, so what she's doing is nothing new.
No,
but it's
clearly
about being a godly wife. I forget exactly what it's called. I gave it to Beth because that was funny. and she loved it, and it's amusing to take a look at this. But it's funny to me that here's this neat-looking blog, and here we are in 2018, and let me tell you how to be the 18th century wife.
Yeah, well, 18th,
and this
17th,
idealized version of it that if we're really getting down to brass tacks, never has really existed, but we can all continue to strive for the
traditional
imaginary.
marriage.
Yeah, Dr. Ray pointed out just last week that marriage is not defined in the Bible. These ideas that we have, one man, one woman for life, all of these concepts, they don't even exist in the Christian literature, which is why I'm so glad there's all this fan fiction dating back to the 1800s and now in blog form.
Yes. So one in particular, I'm thinking that this could become a recurring segment of Megan Rage Quits over this transformed wife, because let me just read a couple lines from one article, which is "The True Cost of Women Leaving the Workforce." Let's see here. Some women don't want to give up their SUVs and their control. Others don't want to give up their seeming significance and relative stardom. That is what we seem to talk about most of the time here, and rightfully so. Oh.
Why women don't want to give up their significance and their value?
Yeah.
But she
That's such a pain in
she
the
didn't say
ass.
significance. Didn't she call it like seeming?
Stardom. Their seeming significance.
Seeming significance.
And relative stardom.
You think you're significant, but you're not.
But you're really not.
The subtlety of that message. I mean, on the one hand, it slaps you in the face when you exert it like that, but it also, the language is very casual, like as if we all understand.
It's a
that women aren't
velvet glove with
significant.
spikes.
Absolutely.
It is a backhanded bitch slap.
The best kind.
So the next sentence is, but some women have a legitimate fear, I use that word very loosely, in wondering how it can all be unraveled, getting rid of a too large house payment, 2 car payments, and then adjusting to a much less disposable income. Bitch, please.
Yeah, how disposable does your income feel right about now, Megan?
My disposable income ran out about, I don't know, 5 ramen noodle packets ago. So, yeah.
I wish we had for discussions like this, I wish we had like a privilege meter. So you should play, oh, wait, 2 cars, SUV, what disposable income? What the hell are you talking about?
Seriously.
Oh, yeah. Living out scripture forces people to take a totally different perspective on all life. Welcome to be ye separate. Welcome to be holy, for I am holy. But this does transcend one from the carnal to the spiritual. I'm just...
So the carnal, which is real and fun,
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean...
and the spiritual, which is not real and not particularly fun.
No, although the carnal can become spiritual depending on, what kind of experiences you have.
So long as God is there watching you.
Yeah.
Like freaking
if you're having a three-way with God, it's good.
The evil elf on the shelf.
Oh, yeah.
And lastly, let's see here. And on the macro scale, imagine if just 10% of women in this country left the workforce. The big sucking sound, the implosion economically, houses being sold off, extra cars on the market, sales of new units going unsold, government income and sales taxes going down, college enrollment off, and on and on.
That giant sucking sound is her brain trying to pretend she's an economist.
I was going to say her brain trying but not coming out of her ass. But it just goes on, and, but there's a positive side to women leaving the workforce. Mm-hmm. Less traffic.
More jobs for men.
Yeah.
Less greenhouse gases. If that is, this literally says less greenhouse gases, if that is real. Mothers actually at home with their kids and wives at home for their husbands.
So the theory here is that if we remove half the people from the workforce, we'll have better acquisition of resources and these different things. I feel like I saw a movie recently where that was kind of the rough plot. When Thanos snapped, did he just destroy like all of the working women? Was that kind of how that? I didn't follow it.
How are the men going to be pleased?
That's a real concern. Okay,
Because-
back to the drawing board. It's science fiction.
Because it actually says more of his people will be pleasing him. It's just who was the politician who said his day is not right if he doesn't start it on his knees? And I have to say, there's merit to that outlook. But So, yeah, this is going to probably be a recurring thing because now that I am kind of glued to this monstrosity.
I was actually pleased when my wife had a job.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
This whole notion of there's more people to please. I don't need more people to please me. And actually bringing in an income and contributing to the house is one way to do so. There's nothing at all wrong with somebody who, the non-working mothers, the housewives, which became house husbands. It doesn't matter whatever label you put. You can contribute in a lot of different ways. But, I think that if she's got an SUV and another car and 2 car payments, leaving the workforce is probably a bad idea at that point.
Yeah.
Debt.
It's a real concern.
How much debt have you run up?
And of course, let us not forget that this is also the woman who said that good God-fearing men prefer women without tattoos, without debt, and who are virgins.
Oh, her.
Yeah.
Oh, I
That's
love her.
That's the woman who writes the blog for the.
How is it that I've never heard of
Transformed
her
wife.
blog, and yet I spend so much time on suicidegirls.com? I don't know.
What?
It's just the opposite. It's tattoos.
tattooed girl,
it's
yeah.
non-virgins.
Pretty sure about that one too.
Yeah.
I mean, I can honestly say yes, I have debt. Yes, I have a tattoo, and sadly, I am no longer a virgin. So, no, not sadly. So
Well, in her view, it's sad.
in her view, it's sad, but she must not be getting good sex. So, with that, I did not rage quit, but boy, howdy, does this woman really get me
Got
going.
your button.
Yes. Yep. So, with that, shall we move to the topic at hand of the new regulations?
Yeah. So, I mean, what we're really talking about here is you've probably seen your Facebook feed and, alarmist news stories, these different things, and you're maybe wondering how legitimately should I take all of this? What we're talking about right now in the week, what everybody is kind of buzzing on, is these changes to the Facebook community guidelines, as well as changes to Tumblr's practices. In recent months, we've seen the close of sites like Backpage, as well as the end of personal ads and things like that on Craigslist.
A whole bunch of stuff is shut down that I didn't even know existed.
Hey, that's
Yeah.
fair. I mean, I think a lot of people were like, wow, Craigslist personal ads were still a thing? And I get that. But it's largely because mainstream folks aren't using these things, not in as big a way, which is why this issue is, I think, so relevant. Because the folks who are being largely affected are folks like sex workers, queer folks in particular that are looking for a sense of community and these different things online, are all being pretty frightened right now about what these changes are going to look like. So I guess to dial it back a little bit, what we're effectively talking about is sort of the impact of FOSTA and SESTA, these two bills passed back in April, in large part on the heels of I Am Jane Doe, a documentary on Netflix that is interesting and is really compelling. And that lays out the case for why these laws are so important. And I do think that they're important, and I don't want to lose sight of that because these regulations are meant to curtail sex trafficking, particularly among children, which is an incredibly important goal.
Right. Yeah. It's a very, very. It's something I think we should all be striving for.
Absolutely. The question is this going to do that?
No.
It really is.
This is absolutely ridiculous. And by the way, I'm not in any way an expert on this. I read up on it a little bit. I heard what some other people had to say. I think this is all a secondary issue. Like, we're trying to solve a problem in a way that makes us feel like we're doing something when we may not, and we haven't looked at the potential collateral. And a lot of the people that are in favor of these laws are going to be like, well, you're talking about this is really bad for people who are in legitimate sex work, but that stuff's illegal anyway, so they shouldn't be doing, That's the problem. Sex work should be legal and regulated, and then all of a sudden you don't need the venue that is a personals ad seeking stuff doesn't need to be used for cover for a legitimate escort, a legitimate sex worker. And once you legalize that and regulate it, now you don't have to worry about those channels being used. And any sex advertisement that's going on there is in fact illegal and may in fact be sex trafficking. And you can't address the issue of sex trafficking until you deal with whether or not, until you legalize and regulate sex work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to remember that it's sex work extends beyond illegal prostitution and these different things. I mean, everybody from strippers to cam girls to a number of different folks are being directly targeted by this in the sense that they can no longer advertise for their business. Payments have been cut off in large ways. I mean, folks like like Square and PayPal and all of these sorts of things have made it impossible to use their platforms. Google Wallet is moving in that direction so that people are not able to receive payments for something that is legal to do. So we're saying on the one hand that, well, I guess this is legal, but we're also demonizing it.
Yeah, now granted, I did not read up like you both did, but I have been aware of this. Mm-hmm. And being a former cam girl, I really worry about like you said, what it will do to legitimate businesswomen. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's be honest. And that it's not really going to curtail any of the illicit, illegal, and rightfully so, certain illegal acts.
Mm-hmm. There were protections in place so that, Craigslist or whoever couldn't fall under legal trouble if somebody posted something that was illegal on a site that they were hosting.
Right. They had a certain responsibility to moderate their own pages, but they weren't liable for anything that was posted by a consumer.
And this changes that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly.
So the natural response to those from those businesses is, well, we're shutting down that portion of our thing. And what you've done now is instead of having it, I couldn't tell you that much about Craigslist personals, but instead of having it there, where you could maybe investigate and find out, which of these are actually sex trafficking. Now you just don't have it. Mm-hmm. And what you did was you got rid of, this 90 whatever chunk in order to save a tinier portion. And I think everybody's in favor of let's stop sex trafficking.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to argue to stop something when you're still criminalizing normal activities, mm-hmm. and when the laws that you pass to do this have the effect of shutting down entire communities. Hey, I want to go hook up with somebody. Let me go use this thing. Well, we can't know for sure that somebody's not paying somebody. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to go down a weird slippery slope here, but there's a context in which I paid for dinner,
right,
and then we had sex. Oh, that's not prostitution. Okay, I paid for dinner and a movie, and then we had sex. Oh wait, no, we went on a cruise for a week. And I didn't actually give you money for sex, but I paid for the cruise. Mm-hmm. It's a strange thing to try to define this when we haven't even gotten to the point where we're willing to accept it.
Yeah.
That, not everybody involved in sex work is a victim of sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it seems like we're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater with this.
Yeah, well, and the mechanism that we've set up effectively, particularly the new Facebook guidelines, really emphasize the idea that, people can still talk about their sexuality, people can still ostensibly meet others in these different things, but the guidelines are written so broadly that if anybody were to, hit the flag and report a post, it now goes under review, and depending on how it's defined, those rules can very clearly cover just about any conversation. And so, myself, I barely use Facebook. I'm only on there because it's a way of feeling connected to the polyamory community, which is very small and is difficult to feel close to. And that's a sexuality-specific group where we discuss sex. People aren't necessarily soliciting for it in most of these groups. That does happen in some of those groups. Those are all very vulnerable now, but even much more broad groups that are offering any form of LGBTQ support and these other things, all anybody has to do is hit report, and now they are being shut down. And
we know there are trolls out there who are going to do it just for shits and giggles.
Exactly. As if queer folks weren't already being bullied in every other goddamn corner of society, we have created this mechanism that makes it so easy to shut down their access to any sort of peer support.
Yeah, I have problems with it for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that people in the queer community broadly, but trans people in particular, arranging meetings anonymously and at a distance can be a bit of a safety net. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And this whole thing reminds me, when we talk about people who want to end abortion, and they're constantly creating trap laws and doing whatever they can to overturn Roe, et cetera, et cetera. When if you want to reduce the number of abortions, they should be in support of condoms.
Right, absolutely.
And yet they're not.
Right,
Comprehensive sex
or
education.
birth control, or any of the pre-egg meat sperm.
And so to me, if you're opposed to sex trafficking, then it would seem that it would be much better to create a task force that's investigating sex trafficking and make use of these utilities instead of doing what they did, which was effectively shut them all down.
Mm-hmm.
I also personally wonder from a perspective of when you take these avenues away, when you restrict something, what's going to pop up? And these things, these actions are not going to stop.
Yeah, people have been having sex despite prohibitions against it for as long as people have been making more people.
Right. And so the question is just where are they going to go now? Mm-hmm. And do we have those avenues that we knew were there? Do we have any do we have any idea of or a way to track the new avenues that they come up with? Mm-hmm. So I think it's just forcing it into a deeper, darker, seedier underbelly.
Let's fix climate change by banning cars.
Right. I think that's a perfect analogy without considering the fact that, more people are going to die because of lack of ambulances, because of decreased value of life and suicide. And I mean, all of these different considerations all come in. I sincerely wonder how many, teenage kids are now going to be cut off from a gay community, from any type of support as they are working with adjusting to an identity that is not well liked, frankly,
right.
In the real world.
Or accepted, yeah.
Yeah, and so having access to that type of support is legitimately saving lives. And by removing that support, I can't know that you're making any positive net balance on protecting children.
And protecting children should be, is again an admirable goal and is something that we all want, but there are probably better ways to go about it.
Absolutely. So it's very disheartening. The truth of the matter is we still are yet to know exactly how all this is going to shake out. I mean, these laws passed back in April, and we saw some immediate effects, and then we all kind of forgot about it for a while. And then as time went on, we started seeing more and more divisions, I suppose, of the web being impacted. I mean, Google Drive no longer allows people to post in their own private folders, their own private sexual pictures. And so that's all of a sudden an avenue that just one leg being taken out. And that's affecting sex workers and all kinds of
they already deleted them?
Wait,
Let me
how
go
am I supposed
check.
to send my dick pics?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's a very real concern. It's a very real concern.
So real quick, I just want to say we still have lines open. You can call us at 512-686-0279. You can also go to the Atheist Experience website and hit the Call the Show button. Both work.
I do want to make a quick shout out to some folks in the chat pointing out that rather than demonizing everybody on the internet, maybe we should turn that task force towards the Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah.
Funny they say that. Nice. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thank you for that segue.
We appreciate you joining us.
It's like you can read our screens.
Yeah. Oh, please no. But let's see here. Hit the like and subscribe button. That helps us out a ton. Gets us on a wider audience. So before the segue, though, I have a wonderful report out of Australia. But I think we should take a call. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bring it on.
See, we've got a few folks on the line.
Yeah. Let's go with Astrid. Astrid, you are on the air.
Hi there, Matt. And I'm sorry, hold on, I'm really bad with names.
Don't
Megan
stress it.
And Christy.
Howdy.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you all doing?
Pretty good. What do you want to talk to us about?
Well, Matt said he wanted to be weirded out, so
I think I said that for him. I feel good about it, though.
I'm okay with it. Let's bring it on.
I'm going to raise my little freak flag over here and tell you a little bit about how I identify.
Okay.
So I am born female, and I do identify as a female as well. And you see, I am a combination, actually, because first off, I thought I was only asexual because I have actually had boyfriends and tried to be attracted to women, and just nothing works. Like nothing. Like I feel absolutely nothing for people except for like, hey, let's be friends. Let's hang out. And it has led to some problems, of course, because people don't know how to take no for an answer, or they get really mad at me. Like, oh, if you would just try, you could somehow like get what I feel for you, and you could reciprocate it.
Right.
It's honestly very infuriating.
Yeah, no question. I mean, asexual invisibility is a meaningful thing that I think is slowly changing in some ways, but I can't imagine what that experience has been like, and I hear that.
Yeah, but I also relate to the Tumblr thing because I'm also another side of it, kind of like how there's like arrow, ace, and all that stuff. This is the weirdest word in the world, but it is a real term I found out because I looked it up because I had always wondered, do I have some kind of a label because I just don't understand myself? And then I looked it up, and stands for sexuality. It is the sexuality where you are only attracted to people who are not real, like never could be real.
Okay.
So like I personally like romanticize about of course, due to my name and stuff, I really like Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon. I like that geeky guy. But yeah, I mean, all throughout my childhood, it was always some animated man. When all the girls, because I was born straight up 90s, so, I lived through the JT and the Backstreet Boys.
Oh,
and
boy,
all that
tell me about
stuff.
it.
And, girls are like, oh my God, Britney Spears. And I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. I like the music. In fact, actually, I liked Queen better because my mom brought me up on
There you go.
that music. She's like, we appreciate Freddie Mercury in this house. But, I just couldn't understand why I was trying to, like, make myself like somebody. And to me, honestly, I don't date anymore at all. I let people know right off the bat because I've had people compliment me and stuff like that and trying to get into relationships. And I'm like, here's the deal. I will never return what you're giving me. And so if you don't want that, if you want the physical aspect and you want that cuddling and stuff, you need to find someone else because I don't want to hurt you for that. And I've had people just say, you could just try it. You could just get in a relationship with somebody. And because I just feel that there's too much fake love out there, too many people say I love you while holding a knife ready to pound it into your back, I don't believe in dating because for me, it doesn't mean anything. So, like I said, that's led to a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely start by pointing out, very few people would earnestly look at a straight guy and say, well, if you just try having sex with a man, I mean, if you just tried, you'll eventually enjoy it, Sexuality doesn't work that way. It is flexible. It is stretchable. There are things that you can do if you're interested in exploring different parts of yourself and opening those things up. But you are who you are, and that's great and awesome. And I'm sorry that it sucked in a lot of ways.
You have completely failed to weird me out at all. I have a number of people. I have a number of friends who fit in any number of categories, and actually, I'm one. I try to make sure that I mention asexual individuals, just to avoid the issue of invisibility, and even that is not a single one size fits all thing. There are people, you can make a delineation between how you are in a romantic sense versus how you are in a sexual sense. So you could be, asexual and yet, hetero romantic or however you want to label it.
Right.
But I know I have friends who are asexual who are like, you just don't get it. Sex is not the thing for me that it is for everybody else. But that doesn't mean that there are asexuals who will engage with, their partners in certain, in the same activities anybody else would be. Sure. But it's more about, I care about my partners. I'm gonna do this, even though it's like nothing for me.
Right.
It's like going to IKEA.
but it seems that you've reached a point, Astrid, where you're, like, okay, I'd rather not, be in this position where somebody's expecting me to try and all this other stuff, so I'm just not going to date. And that's fine. You do you. But I think that as long as we don't shut down every place on the internet, there are probably communities out there where you can find the exact person or one of the many people who would be a good partner, friend, companion that doesn't put expectations on you or make you feel uncomfortable about who you are.
Yes, and I do agree with that. And the whole Tumblr thing just really breaks my heart because of all the community that's going to be lost. And in a way, it's also brought out a really bad side of fandom because I don't know if you're into that whole thing, but I am. I do the Comic-Cons and cosplay and stuff like that. I absolutely adore it. But
total nerds, you're in good company.
Out there who hate other ships, and they will go and report pictures because they don't like that ship.
Yeah.
And they get mad about it. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, thankfully, the two fandoms that I'm currently in, which is I love How to Train Your Dragon, of course, and I also really love, I've really gotten into the Stephen King It fandom, and I really enjoy all of that and stuff.
And now you have successfully weirded me out. No, not really. Not really.
I was going to say, my friend mainly got me into that because she practically gave me a damn presentation because he's like, this is why Eddie Kaspbrak is gay, and Stephen King wrote him like this, and he's just coded, and he's really in love with Richie. And I was like, there's some convincing evidence here.
Fictional characters.
Oh, yeah, fictional characters. And, yeah, you want to weird someone out of the party, tell them that. And then they look at you like, okay, I was down with the whole asexual thing, but you add that on top, it's like, what?
And then depending on their age, you just ask them about that first early experience, whether it was with Aladdin or Jasmine, Ariel. I mean, I think everybody can relate on some level.
Jessica Rabbit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Jessica Rabbit.
Mine was Dimitri from 20th Century Fox Anastasia.
Oh,
Yeah.
He was fucking hot. Excuse my language, sorry. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on this program, though.
Yes.
I didn't think
Yeah,
you were
damn
allowed
right
to not
you
do
can.
that.
Yeah.
I have am really shit at my filter, so
You're shit at your filter. Yes. So, we appreciate you calling in and for swearing.
and
Oh, no problem. You all have a great night, and maybe somebody will weird you out, Matt. I mean, go look at the Stephen King fandom. That
We
will
can
freak
try.
you out.
You can try. I'm pretty hard. I'm pretty unflappable. Flappable. There we
The
go.
man
Go look
cannot
up
be flapped.
Pennywise plus insert reader. Trust you. There will be nightmares.
well, thank you so much for bringing this topic up.
And by the way, that
Thank
should be
you
like,
so much.
people are concerned
What?
about language and, can I curse? Can I? Fuck is the word that should be used on this program specifically
A
for
lot.
no other reason than to make people aware that it shouldn't be anything particularly, obscene or whatever.
Because it can be fun to fuck.
It's an expletive and it's a descriptor. Hey.
Works as a noun, has
It's
a
a verb.
adjective. It's a gorgeous word.
Fuck
Fucking,
you.
fuckity,
Thank
fuck,
you.
fuck, fuck.
Thank you for that kind word from you.
So, real quick, before we get to the next caller, what our chat room so wonderfully gave me a segue to was that the amazing Cardinal Pell has been found guilty. So an Australian jury has found Cardinal George Pell, 77, guilty of 5 charges of historical child sexual offenses that go back decades.
And
Can
I
we
love that
please
term.
have a round of applause for the jury it was a 12-member jury. It was a unanimous verdict. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'm not familiar with Australian law, but I'm very curious and interested about the concept of historical childhood sexual offenses because I do recognize that there are statutes of limitations on a number of crimes, and I think that makes good sense from like a complete overview perspective. But when it comes to, hey, we found out that you fucked like a bunch of kids a long time ago, that can't be something that we just roll
Forget
on
about.
past.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially given circumstances around, children and the power dynamic and how that can take decades and sometimes never be resolved.
I mean, how many adult women feel comfortable,
Right.
confronting their accusers, of filing reports, of
Or how
going
many
through our
adult
bullshit
men?
legal system? Yeah, absolutely. I think men even more so are uncomfortable with reporting. Even if they're a smaller proportion of the number of victims, they do exist, and their likelihood of reporting is infinitesimally smaller.
Right. So
It's also different depending on people reporting things that happened when they are adults or near adults is different because most of the ones that were assaulted as children, were raped as children, were groomed.
Absolutely.
And there's an extra element of shame there of how could I let myself be groomed, for this. How could I put myself in the position? They take some of the ownership of that because, clearly there were 20 other kids there, but somehow I was the one that was picked. And they knew I was going to be silent, and they knew a way to make me silent. It can take a lifetime to even get to understand what happened well enough to want to talk about it with anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that, at least we're seeing some children are seeing some justice from a higher up in the Catholic Church. So let's go on to our next call.
I was going to say, fuck you, Cardinal Pell, but then I realized that might be a compliment. So Cardinal Pell, you got what you deserved, you piece of shit.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
a multifaceted word.
Yes.
It can get very confusing. So to be very clear, that guy's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right,
And
we're in agreement?
fuck you and the horse you rode in on, and not in a
Not
good
in a
way.
good way.
So let's go on
But
to
get
our
consent from the horse.
Yeah, let's go on to our next caller, Lena in Germany. Hello, Lena.
In Germany. Hello, Lena.
I think you might want to
Lena.
turn your volume down.
I think you might want to turn
Oh,
your
yeah.
volume down.
We can hear us repeated.
Yeah, you may need to turn us off from the background. Lena, are you there?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
You wanted to talk about kinks?
You wanted to talk about kinks?
Yeah, you need to just completely mute the show and just
Yes.
listen through the phone. Oh, I bet you're calling from a computer, aren't you?
Yeah, it was the button.
I bet you're calling from a computer, aren't you?
Yes, I'm calling from computer.
I would suggest pausing the stream of the show while you're talking to us and then restart it once we're done.
I already did. It's just the call that's on my screen now. So,
Okay.
but I don't have headphones, so that's probably the reason.
So you wanted to talk about kink?
So you wanted to talk about kink?
Yeah, at least before before all the talk about child molestation ruined my mood.
Yeah, it's a tricky
sorry.
segue.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that.
I tell you what we should do. We should put her on hold and let the call screener see if they can work through the kind of audio reflection issue and then come back to her.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear back from you, okay?
We'd love to hear
We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Okay, thanks.
We'll be back with you in just a moment.
All right. So we will see if our wonderful techs in the back hey guys, can help her out with that. And in the meantime, let's go on to our next caller. By the way, we still have lines open. Give us a shout. We would love to hear from you. Next call is Randy. Randy, you are on the air.
Hey, hi, Megan, Christy, Matt. How are you doing?
Good.
Doing well, thanks.
How's it going?
I'm good, thank you. So I wanted to talk about it's something related to the topic of the show today about sex trafficking and sex trafficking victims, and my job actually implies working with victims of sex trafficking. I'm a Spanish interpreter with the Legal Aid Society in New York, and there's a division of it called the Exploitation Intervention Project, which is the goal of that is to assist people that or victims of sex trafficking that have criminal records due to that, because they get arrested, they're charged with prostitution, and there are a number of consequences, like a criminal record in the state of New York is forever. It's probably forever. That can have immigration consequences, job opportunity consequences, and getting social public benefits, etc. So the goal of this organization is to, or this part of my organization is to clean up the criminal records and also help these victims to get public benefits, maybe get a job, adjust their immigration status. And so I'm the Spanish interpreter. So part of the process is to we have to interview these people, and they have to pretty much tell their life story, how they became victims of this sex trafficking. And so basically, when I'm interpreting, I'm their voice, like literally their voice for the attorneys and the social workers that are getting this information to create, certain affidavits that we will present to a judge and a district attorney's office, so to see if they can clean their criminal records, because they were actually victims, not the perpetrators, so to speak. And the way I can tell you, and this goes to the topic of the show, that pretty much every time I've worked with these people, and I kind of know their story and how they got involved and how the operations is, none of these have anything to do with the application of these new laws that is for social media and
Backpage and Craigslist and these things, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, all these laws will do nothing to curtail the sex trafficking that goes on in the world where I work with, the type of clients that are low income. They come from Mexico, maybe from China. My Chinese interpreter colleague has to deal with that. It's just none of it is going to. I guess my instinct tells me that actually these laws are going to create an influx of trafficking that was used to be able to be in the online world to go offline, and so it's going to be even harder to track and harder to control or to prosecute. So that's the way how I'm seeing this. I think it's going to, in some ways, it might make things actually worse.
Yeah, I think that's kind of along the lines of what I was kind of concerned about earlier, is where will they go now, and how will it, we will lose our way of tracking it, or the way we've learned.
The systems we've put in place to be able to track these people down. Yeah, absolutely.
Catch a predator.
Yeah, because a lot of the system works is and it's a big business. And for instance, here in New York, what happen is some, I guess, agent of the trafficking operation, let's say in Mexico, meets these girls, and they usually go to rural towns, so they meet these naive girls, and some of them are underage or close to or very close to the 18-year-old age, and they seduce them. Oh, you're my boyfriend. Oh, and they sort of create a relationship in the girl's mind. It's a relationship, and we'll go to the U.S. There's money, there's jobs, and And they come here, and basically they come into this enterprise where like they work from these houses. A lot of these girls, the traffickers actually. I mean, I guess it's rape. It's not like necessarily violent, but it's rape because they force them to have sex, and so they get pregnant. So then they have like a baby that also ties them to the enterprise, and that's all offline. There's no way, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
and on a side note, I mean, this probably is a side note. This is a topic more for the atheist experience, but most of these people that I've had, they're religious. These girls, or sometimes transgender women, are also victims of this. They're very religious in a sense, and like a lot of the questions that come on literally is like, what did I do wrong? Because if God allowed this person to do this to me, I must done something wrong. So that's kind of the topic of how religion is actually bad for this situation. But aside from that, it's just I'm actually skeptical of the intentions of these laws, because even in law enforcement here in New York City, as far as I can tell, there really is not an effort to really look into trafficking. There's just an effort to get these prostitutes, and there are prostitutes, and charge them with crimes. And sometimes they go the lengths to the NYPD goes to. They make these undercover raids just to get this poor girl who's trapped in a situation. Yeah. And I'm wondering why isn't the same effort done to infiltrate these trafficking rings and break them up and get the real big fish.
Yeah, to go after the Johns and the actual traffickers.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, I don't see that, and I see that these laws do nothing really to curtail that.
Well, I think there are two really important points here. I mean, I referenced the documentary I Am Jane Doe, which is, again, a really heartbreaking story, and no child should ever be subjected to this kind of treatment. But the laws that we're talking about, the things where, somebody might be groomed and recruited on Facebook and these different things, we're not really talking about Chinese and Mexican girls being smuggled across borders. We're talking about young, generally white suburban girls, and that's what these laws are really designed to protect. They're not going after sex trafficking. They're not protecting sex trafficked children. They're protecting a very specific type of sex trafficked children.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's like
maybe, exactly.
Sex trafficking existed before there was the internet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so to primarily focus on that, where's the data that shows that sex trafficking has actually exploded on the internet, and in what way? Because if you had that data, then you'd know exactly how to target what's going on in that sense. I'm with you. I'm not convinced that this is actually. This may be doing more harm than good, but I don't have the data for that any more than they seem to have the data for the questions that we have.
Right.
Which goes to my second point. I mean, these are complex laws that have to do with the emerging technological systems. And I mean, for anybody who saw Mark Zuckerberg facing Congress over the summer, they're being written by folks who have no damn business.
No fucking
You don't have
clue.
to go back that far. Go back and listen to the CEO of Google being interviewed this week by a bunch of people who have no fucking clue what the interwebs are.
What?
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely devastating as he's explaining, like, on my iPhone, can I, and the CEO is sitting there, I work for Google. I don't, why are you asking me this? You know they're different
Does
things.
Google know, if I get up from here and walk over to the other side of the room, does Google know? And he couldn't give him a yes or no. And he's like, well, I think you know.
And these are the folks that are
And the
writing
Illuminati
these complex
is real.
laws.
I don't think these people should be involved in any laws pertaining to technology.
But in addition, I would say they shouldn't be involved in any laws, or at least if laws that which is goals is to curtail sex trafficking. Why aren't they going to people like my organization or other? There are lots. Mine's the only one. There are also that advocate for these victims and say, what is the best methodology to actually nail these trafficking rings? I don't see that happening. I see that it's a big show. It's like it's theater in my point of view.
Yeah. It seems to me that, like, it can't be that hard to suss out more information about sex trafficking, because clearly you have people participating on both sides of this. You have the people who are exploiting other individuals to work as sex workers, and then you have the Johns. Now, they managed to find out where to go and who to talk to and everything. So while I'm not a big fan of the let's arrest all the Johns thing, because frankly, this should all be legal, and you would just be a customer. But if we're gonna try to end sex trafficking, it would seem that you could talk to the people, the guy that's got a family and decided to go out and hire a prostitute that he had no idea was a sex trafficking, get him to flip. How did you find this? How did you where is this?
Yeah, we have like informants that they used to for drug enforcement, and they use these informants, which are people that were either drug trafficked, like minor guys, or they were users, and so they use them to get to the bigger guys, and they use them as informants, and then they have like a search warrant and they raid the place where there's all these drugs. I would say I agree with that proposition that they would use these Johns, and these Johns like, oh, you're in trouble. Well, we'll give you a break if you act as a sort of informant and you infiltrate this and get some information so we can go get the big fish in this trafficking ring.
Yeah.
Well, Randy, thank you so much for your, I guess, I don't want to say insider information, but your inside perspective.
Yeah, just the insight about everything that you've witnessed, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of the organization I work for, and we do good work. So thank you for taking my call.
And not only that, but think for a second, how cool is this? You guys have done how many episodes of this show?
This is lucky number 13.
13. So you got a fairly new show. We're trying to get callers in, and we have someone who calls in, and their job is relevant to the topic at hand. I mean, that just shows how the reach of ACA programs and secular sexuality and stuff are growing. It's just really cool that you could be talking about something and somebody with some knowledge and expertise who works in the industry, hey, let me tell you this, and
Which is, I mean, I guess just goes to show just how, I mean, this is normal. This is everyday life. This is, what we all see and hear and live through every day. And though we don't really debate with people on this show, which I know you are so sad about.
Sex is good. What do you mean sex is not good? Sex is good. Let's debate it.
Yeah. But even though we don't really debate, I think we try to come at it from a slightly different angle with just discussing the topics and discussing with people. And, I think we've helped some people too, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's an exciting thing to be a part of. And with that mandate and with an eye on the chat, it brings up for me the question of how much are these laws intended to cut down on sex trafficking? Because we've really talked around how ineffective they are. And how much was that unintentional and just poorly crafted, poorly understood? And how much of this is a direct attempt to encourage censorship?
Right. Specifically at those communities that are already fighting for their lives. Yeah,
heavily marginalized and really in the democratization of the internet, getting to start to find their voice and now receiving a huge pushback on that.
Right. And real quick, we need callers, please. So 512-686-0279. We also have an email address if you don't feel comfortable calling in. It is sex@atheist-community.org. Feel free to send us.
I'm sure that email address is being monitored for sex trafficking as we speak.
Yeah, seriously. Just by doing this show, I'm wondering what kind of watch list we might be ending up on.
We've already been censored a couple times, I think. Not anything major, but, just because of the topics we have.
Yeah, the nature of what we do. And, somebody asked me today as we were kind of prepping for this and talking about, sort of our fears for sex workers and these different folks. And I think it might have even been you, Megan. You were like, you're a sex therapist who is on the internet. How concerned should you? And it hadn't even occurred to me, such is my privilege, that I generally don't find myself. I mean, I was heartbroken to lose all my Tumblr porn. I'll acknowledge that. That was devastating for me. But in any sort of meaningful sense,
right.
it hadn't even occurred to me how far-reaching this could potentially get.
That you could be a victim of this legislation.
Absolutely, and we're in the early days, and I don't see it getting all the way up to me.
Right.
I imagine that so many other folks are going to be devastated long before that comes to pass, but it definitely feels like, especially when you look into the details of the new Facebook guidelines, that we could be headed in that direction. I mean, my counseling business has a Facebook page. How much longer is that going to be the case?
We can only hope. So, since we don't have a caller right now, hey, Matt.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you feel about a couple questions?
Ask away. I'm here for whatever you guys want.
All right. So I'll start off with a bit of a zinger.
Okay.
You are on a sex show right now.
That's what I'm told.
Yeah. What is that face for?
I'm bracing myself.
Oh, okay.
For the question.
Okay.
For the zinger.
Biggest turn on. Ooh, I stumped him.
It's very hard to narrow these things down.
I mean, I could make a list and not be able to pick from the list because...
It's not hierarchical, man.
Well, if you say biggest, that makes it hierarchical.
Well, I'm saying we'll work with you here.
So I love orgasm sounds. But I think probably my favorite thing, I don't know, there's stuff that leads up to it. So I was going to say, like, my favorite thing is just get naked, make out, and then go to sleep, whether you have sex or not, whatever. But that kind of intimacy thing. But that's also predicated on, there are people I know who I will do that with, who I can't really have a conversation with, and it's so much better if I can actually have a conversation with somebody. So I don't want to go down the sapiosexual kind of path, but if you're brilliant and funny and can have all that makes all of the other things better.
Terribly attractive, sure.
It's like that's the butter on the orgasm sounds or making out or whatever. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That wasn't a zinger.
So I guess quickly for our audience, sapiosexual is then the idea that you'd be attracted to intelligence or exclusively attracted to intelligence?
Yeah. I'm not, I don't know how, I mean, there are people who are like, oh, that's not a real thing. Okay, well, you can say it's not a real thing, but how do you deny
a word,
that?
And you knew what I meant when I said it.
You can be attracted to
anything.
I was going to bring up objectophiles earlier when Astrid was on talking about being attracted to fictional characters. You want to shock somebody, tell them you're turned on by the lamppost type thing, assuming it's true. But when people are like, oh, I'm a sapiosexual, it seems to be like a trendy thing to say, like, I like smart people,
Yeah.
And maybe
the implication being, I am also smart.
Yeah, maybe it is. But at the end of the day, you can be attracted to almost any characteristic of anybody. I like... hair, eyebrows, physical features. I like the way somebody laughs or their accent or, anything.
Like big butts and I cannot lie.
There you go.
No? Okay, never mind.
Is that what your anaconda wants?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Okay, that's fair.
It depends on all the other characteristics. We have discussed before the Kinsey scale.
Yeah.
So,
piece of shit.
would you for
Let's
the
get some hot takes.
I will tell you my Kinsey scale story.
But before that, for the audience, would you mind giving us a very brief primer on what the Kinsey scale is?
It's an antiquated test that is completely useless that was designed to figure out where you are on a spectrum between 0 being completely straight and, I don't know, does it go to 5 or whatever?
6, yeah.
6 being completely gay. That's essentially what it was. It came out of
Your
some
gayness
research.
meter.
Yeah, how gay are you? And I'm kind of gay. I mean, you know, in
You're a
stereotypical
human.
fashion.
You exist on a spectrum.
Yeah. I scored a 0. I was just sitting around the house one day. Beth was out doing something else, and I took I was like, hey, I've never taken this Kinsey test. Let's see where I am. And I answer all the questions, and I'm mad the whole way through because every question or almost every question is like, well, that's a crappy question because it doesn't take this into account or that into account or whatever. But, you know, you answer as best you can. And I get done, and it's a 0. And Beth comes home, and she looks at me, and I'm just sitting there in the chair just kind of fuming. And she's like, what's the matter? And I was like, I took the Kinsey scale test today. Oh, yeah? What'd you get? I got a 0. I've never gotten a 0 on any test I actually showed up to take. But this thing, it doesn't take certain things into account. And it's frustrating because, you know, granted, yes, I am not romantically or sexually attracted to men. But the test is really binary, heteronormative. It doesn't take into account, you know, trans women or anything. It's not a spectrum.
Right.
It's a line with a couple of notches on it. It's not a spectrum until you get, you know, broader in this. And I was so frustrated.
It's a belt
just
with
a few,
6 loops.
A few boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was really frustrated with it. I ended up looking around, and yes, there are some improvements in, you know, newer tests. But I kind of gave up because I'm fine with people labeling themselves however they want. And I'm also not bothered by not having a label for something. You know, we went with sapiosexual, and then there's objectophile and all these other things. The very notion of how gay are you or how straight are you, how bi are you, how, you know, how, I don't know, pick something. It's very frustrating. And I thought that I was going to be getting useful information from a test that gave me nothing useful from the test, but did open up my eyes to there are better ways to kind of assess these things. And at the end, if you don't feel the need to assess, don't. Because we were talking at one point about potential labels that would apply to me. And we investigated all the labels that are out there, and several of them could apply at different times, and some of them. So I just decided
Situational and
I'm not
the
going to
fluidity
label
of sex. Yeah.
What mood are you in?
Yeah. Well, you know, what turns you on may be different from what you are interested in romantically.
Yeah.
So, or what you're interested with in a long-term relationship.
Or what you're interested in your own head versus in your bedroom.
Yeah.
Or dungeon, as it may be.
Or as we were talking about, fantasy.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we were in an open relationship because Beth had always been polyamorous, and we were trying to figure out if I was at all. And it turns out I'm not polyamorous in any sense that's useful.
Okay.
I am perfectly fine with the notion that I can care about and be in relationships with multiple people. I think there's always like a primary 5 steps bigger than everything else relationship that I might need. But my willingness or my agreement to be in an open relationship was more about, hey, I don't own her. I don't own her sexuality. I don't get to dictate who she can and can't have sex with. I think it's preposterous and silly to think that one person is going to be the end-all, be-all, everything for somebody else. If that happens for some people, cool. You won the lottery.
Yeah.
And you know, I hope that you guys are happy forever, but I just don't think that's practical. And so our process of kind of opening up the relationship was more about, hey, we have different libidos, we have different interests, we have this other stuff, and we can still have all those other things that we care about together. And the only question was, is Matt going to get jealous? Because coming from a background that kind of encourages jealousy. And so when we went into this, it was a gradual thing where we would, okay, let's try this out a little bit, let's try this out a little bit. And, you know, I figured out who I was, no matter how somebody wants to label it. And that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that comes up again and again that we'll continue to embrace. And we did talk about it last week with Daryl Ray.
Yeah.
And I think that those labels have value, but only to the extent that you want them to. And that acknowledging that you can go through the entire thesaurus trying to describe yourself, and you're never really going to put your finger on it, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be a box. It doesn't have to be a notch on a belt. It doesn't have to be, some color on a spectrum or on a wheel. Or, I do want to reference the gender unicorn as maybe the better way than perhaps a Kinsey scale or some of these antiquated notions. But even that is very incomplete, and that's okay. We don't necessarily have to define or box in all of these things.
Yeah, I got to a point where it was, because I would, like, if we watched gay porn or whatever, it was doing nothing.
Sure.
The key thing is that it didn't revulse me the way when I was growing up, if I saw two guys kissing, it would have been, ugh.
Yeah.
And that feels like such a natural response that you think it's natural when it's not. It's actually a trained response. I remember when Don Baker and his partner Elton got married, and they kissed it at the end of the ceremony, and I was like, oh. And then I had this moment of like, wait a minute, two guys just kissed, and I was like, oh, that's so cute. And there were a lot of things transitioning out of my former religion and mindset around sex. I'm probably a little irritated that I could have had a whole lot more sex than I did and was probably prevented from having some sex because of the religious baggage. But at the end of the day, I figured out I want people in my life, different people for different facets of my life. So the people that I might be romantically interested in, there might be people I just want to, I have no romantic or sexual interest in, but I want to take them on dates. Are we going to have to come up with a label for that? That I'm, I don't know, pick a label. But yeah, I just want to go do something, and I want it to be not with somebody I hang out with at the ACA all the time and not somebody who I'm necessarily, interested in sleeping with. Let's just go do something. And a lot of it has to do with getting to know people, which is why I kind of go down the sapiosexual route. It's not even about brilliance so much as it about being something new and different, learning something. So it's a very selfish thing because I seem to be out to learn things even about people. And I just decided, let's say that I'm interested in someone and we're hanging out, and all of a sudden my feelings about that person start to go in a different direction than I anticipated. Maybe I am sexually attracted to this person or romantically attracted. Anytime that's happened, the characteristics that are on the list of what qualifies for that, it's never been, is this person cisgendered? Do they have these particular genitals? Is it about this particular hair? It has been more about something about you intrigues me, something about you makes me want to spend more time. I don't care what it is, and maybe it's sexual and maybe it's not. Just go with it.
Right.
I've always loved that notion of
Channeling Gore Vidal, I guess.
Yeah. Are you a boob man or an ass man?
Yeah.
Or these kinds of questions because, I mean, I guess there's some validity to it. I mean, I think we all have that friend who, like, every person they dated looks exactly the same. But I don't know that most folks are like that. I know that for myself, people look to describe or tell me that, all of your exes are blah, blah, blah. And it's probably just because I met them from like the same place. I often find that once I have the opportunity to meet, especially moving to Austin and having just a broader opportunity to meet different types of folks, that, like you said, maybe it didn't start off with any sort of meaningful attraction, but once we got to know each other, something that I had no idea I was interested in pops up.
Yep.
So
speaking of things that pop up, sorry.
Nice. Yes.
That's the famous secular sexuality single entendre.
So we have another caller.
Okay, great.
And I believe we have heard from them before. Mo, you are on the air.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Just watching the video that you guys are in. So
Sure. Yeah. What kind of questions did that bring up for you?
it brings a lot of questions. Actually, like, I'm so shy, so you gotta excuse me for it.
That's okay.
So,
It's touchy topics, but bring it on.
Justice,
Okay.
we've heard a lot.
We've heard it.
okay, so what I wanna talk about is just how disabled people have like intimacy with another human being.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is like almost none, but still.
Yeah, so you're curious about how people who have different disabilities and different physical limitations are still able to interact sexually?
Yeah, well, yes, because like I'm disabled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have enough experience in that kind of sense, even though that I had high experience, but it's not like that much.
Okay.
So I've been wondering, like, what is your take in like that kind of sense? I mean, how would you feel if a disabled person comes to you and then says like, I don't know, let's have sex, and then you said yes? Like, how would you
Imagine I'd feel pretty good.
Yeah,
If somebody came to me and said, let's have sex, and I said yes.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
but
It can be an added complication, right?
It depends. I mean, disability is such a broad category.
Absolutely. I think
Yeah.
that's the first thing to really get at is what kinds of things are we talking about?
we
Because, I mean,
talking
depression can be a
physical
disability that has incredibly dire sexual consequences for many folks, but we don't necessarily see it that same way.
I have a couple friends with disabilities of different types who have much more sex and much better sex than I probably ever will. So,
Yeah. Okay. So the kind of disability that I have is that I cannot move all my right side. My, like, let's say my right side is unable to move.
Yep.
Right. So how would you manage to, like, I don't know.
I
How
think
would you manage?
I think I kind of understand the question that you're trying to get to, and I think find if you are able to, and the internet is a great place to look,
or it was.
Yeah. Look for someone who likes being dominant, who likes, and by that I don't mean like a dominatrix. I just mean someone who likes to be the dominant one, who likes to be on top, who likes to
Be the giver.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're in a situation where you have partial mobility issues and that might diminish your ability to do certain things, there's plenty of people out there who would be like, I don't care that you can't, move your right side.
I can move my sides.
I can move both sides, and I can, you've got your left side, and I can help out. There's somebody out there. I mean, I'm not saying you can just, hop online and find somebody in the next 20 minutes, but I do some unusual, like, exploratory conversations with sex workers on a frequent basis. And the number of them that are just, in addition to, trying to make a buck, but genuinely giving people that this, I found out that I need, no, we're not going there. I was going to talk about, I need to be in a relationship with people who I can help in some way because that helps me to help them. So I'm
Right.
more giving in that
Something
sense.
you're motivated by,
Right.
yeah.
There are other people who are going to be in similar situations. I don't want to pretend like it's going to be easy. Like, hey, I called secular sexuality. They told me to go out and find somebody, and boom, there they were.
Ta-da! Yeah, I think it really comes down to two important steps. One is making sure to maintain a broad idea of what sex is. I think if we wrap up this show, if we were to get canceled tomorrow, if we were just done, the one thing I would want to make sure
You jinxed it.
Yeah, now it'll happen. Episode 13, we're done. Wrap it up, pack it in.
Matt's fault.
Yeah. The message I would want to leave the world with is this idea that sex is not a penis inside of a vagina. You know, P and V sex, intercourse, even other forms of sexuality that involve two men or two women, that is also not all that sex is. Sex can be by yourself. Sex can be, it doesn't necessarily include orgasm. It is a broad conceptualization that can include a lot of things. And so not everybody wants all of those things, but recognizing for yourself that your sexuality may be a number of different things and expanding those definitions. The other thing is working with professionals, whether that's a physical therapist, whether that's your doctors, whether that's a sex therapist, to talk about what your limitations might be and what some strategies that other folks are using or could use to overcome them.
And the other thing about talking about experts is they can help you figure out how you breach these communications with other people. So you need to first, and it's really easy to say, get yourself some confidence and realize that you have value. But you do. You need to realize that you have value to other people, and that if you're entering a relationship, we need better communication. We need clear and honest communication. That's the only way you can get to informed, enthusiastic consent. That's the best sex you're ever going to have is, people will be like, well, isn't it just so awkward to be like out and dating and maybe playing the game, and then all of a sudden it becomes more like a contract. Okay, well, if you're pulling out a contract, you've probably gone a bit too far.
Unless that's your kink.
If it's your kink, go for it.
Your kink is not my kink. That kink is okay.
Kink is okay.
But I've never had bad sex that started with a conversation about what we both wanted and cared about. Mm-hmm. However, I have had bad sex that did not start with that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if that conversation is coming from a place of, well, you might not like this, and I have to warn you, then that is going to be a tricky and uncomfortable thing. And like Matt's saying, confidence isn't something you can just buy at a store. But by rehearsing these things, by talking them through with professionals, by preparing yourself, you have something beautiful and exciting to sell that somebody wants.
I think that one of the things that's problematic is that we are not conditioned to be honest for fear of rejection. Mm-hmm. And so what we end up doing is, let me kind of tiptoe around this and maybe kind of hint and blah, 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 and see if maybe, did that go too far? Well, then I'm definitely not going to tell you about this, but I don't want to lose this relationship. So I'm going to start making compromises, and then we'll stay together, it'll all work. And what you end up doing is you've intentionally put yourself in a relationship with somebody who doesn't want the same things you do. Mm-hmm. And I know that it's frustrating as hell. I had a friend, I'm gonna retract that. I have a friend of a friend, because he was not really a friend of mine, who would literally walk into bars and just go from woman to woman saying, hi, my name's so-and-so, would you like to come home and have sex with me? Now, we can talk all day about how creepy that is, but it's forthright.
That is so creepy.
Yeah. But I'll tell you this.
Not the best opening line.
It works?
Of course it works. Somebody out
Through
there
tenacity
is going to say yes. You just ask enough people. The thing is, that may not be the best strategy, but when that person ends up having sex, everybody knows what page you're on to start with. And I think this fear of missing out on a relationship that might have involved some compromise is legitimate, in the sense that if you can, I have changed some things about myself in order to be with some people. I don't think that was a mistake. I think that was valuable. I learned from it. I benefited from a relationship. But if my goal was to just, hey, I really want to find the right person for me to be in a relationship, be it romantic, sexual, whatever, the best thing I could do is not just walk up to random people and say, hi, I like this, and here's my kink, and here's blah, blah, blah. But in the process of the conversation, be honest. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like something, say you don't like something. If you say you like something, and if you're afraid of what their reaction is going to be to what you like, if their reaction is negative to what you like, then you probably shouldn't be with them, if that's what you like, if it's important to you. If you're like, hey, I only like really long hair, and you're talking to somebody who shaves their head, you know, and that's the way they want to be. Now you're in a position where you're constantly dealing with this issue of, am I trying to change them? Are they trying to change me? You know, and it's fine to change. But if you just start with an honest conversation, things go a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, less grief.
Okay. Well, that's the issue, though. I'm so, like, straightforward. Like, if I'm in a relationship, then I give my 100%. I just care about the person that I'm with. I just do everything by the book because, my mom taught me. You know, if you have something to give, then you must give it 100%, right?
I don't know. Your mom might be wrong.
Yeah, I just know that right now.
Yeah.
But the thing is that sometimes the people is not that open to that idea.
It's harder and harder to find people who are open to things as we begin to deviate from whatever we've slapped a label on for normalcy at the moment. Yeah, that's why we're all quick to point out that, you know, we're not necessarily saying this is going to be easy, but it's
doable.
7 billion people on the planet. I'm pretty sure that there's, you know, probably 1 million or so that would be happy to.
Yeah, I don't know how to crunch the numbers, but I'm confident that somebody is interested in having sex with you, and if you work at it, you can find that person, and you can make the right introduction, have the right conversation. And again, I would really encourage you, whether it's through an organization like ASECT or, of course, the Secular Therapy Project or these different avenues, to pursue a little bit of expertise as you're working through the particulars and the specifics of your particular limitations.
Yeah, because I do jerk off like almost twice a day. Okay.
So there's interest, yeah.
Almost twice a day.
Yeah, but it is commonly.
Those are JV numbers, buddy. You got to get those up.
I'm just figuring out how you get to, like, once a day, twice a day,
yes.
Almost twice a day.
Almost twice a day.
You know, like 12 times a week.
Like I ruined one so that the two tomorrow are even better.
Yeah, but the thing is that I know that it is not healthy.
Why?
Why not?
Why?
What about that is not healthy?
Yeah.
Jerking off twice a day
is
fantastic. Perfectly healthy.
You're doing pretty good. I can remember times in my past when I was younger when there were days where it'd be 4 or 5 times a day, and then other times where it was once a day, once a week. Well, probably never.
Yeah, am I still considered younger? I don't know where that cutoff is, but yeah, you're.
As long as it's not negatively impacting some other part of your life, I don't care if you jerk off all day long.
Yeah. You may get dehydrated, but apart from that,
do you love yourself?
I'm sorry, what?
I was asking if you love yourself. It seems like a perfectly reasonable thing to do. It's a natural part of what human beings need. And, you know, they had Daryl Ray on last week, and I know Daryl's incredibly fond of masturbation because he won't stop talking about it.
Yes.
And good for him, because clearly, just from you calling, there are still people who need to be informed.
Reminded.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not going to go blind.
Yeah.
I promise.
You're not.
You don't have a limited number.
You're not going to break it. Yeah, hairy palms. I didn't grow up with that one. So when somebody told me at like 25 that was a myth they'd grown up with, that masturbating too much would give them hairy palms, I blew my mind.
I remember somebody tried to convince me that you had a limited number of orgasms that you could have.
And you have to save them for the right person.
And I was like, well, if that's the case, let's get this shit over while I'm still young and healthy. What do I want 500 orgasms stashed up for when I'm 93?
Seriously.
Not that 93-year-olds shouldn't be having orgasms. By all means, do it. But I'm going to get it in now.
I think this is going to be, Mo, I think the tagline for today's show is going to be, you can never have too many orgasms and you can never jerk off too much. Unless it's negatively impacting your life in other ways, but generally
we should just call it Mo orgasms are better. In honor of Mo.
Yeah, because I feel good. I feel happy.
Heck yeah.
Once I, you know.
Yeah.
I masturbate.
Yeah, you're the
Lowers
one
your
who's
heart
going to know
rate,
how to do it
dumps
right.
Dopamine, yeah, absolutely, and it also gives you an opportunity to understand your body, which is going to be important when working with a partner, particularly as you're working through these different types of limitations.
How can you possibly tell somebody else what you like if you haven't explored to find out what you like?
Yeah.
That's the issue, though, because I don't have like enough female partners to go to, so that will be a problem, though.
I tell you what, you start walking around telling people you're jerking off twice a day, you'll find somebody. No, that's a joke. Don't take that seriously.
Don't walk up to every woman at a bar and point that out.
It's a bad idea. But
I was gonna say, like, okay, so I present myself as, hi, I jerk off twice a day, so are you into it?
I would put that on a dating profile on a website where sexual information was included. I would not include that in like my elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Not that you should have an elevator pitch for sex, but
Oh, okay.
But
Depends on the elevator.
I think it's clear to say that there are folks out there interested and able, and go find them. I'm glad that you called, and I really hope that you definitely leave this conversation knowing that the way that you love yourself, the way that you touch yourself, all of that is great.
and tomorrow you should jerk off 3 times just because you thought there might be a problem with 2.
Yeah.
Well, I was planning to jerk off like right now, but
You go for it. As we wrap up the show, we tell everyone go give yourself an orgasm.
Yeah, I have to say, Megan, that's about the easiest segue into our evening wrap up I've ever had.
I
handed
know,
to me.
just on a silver platter.
Every week somebody should call in and say, I was going to go jerk off right now, and then you'll be set.
Right?
Be like, oh, I guess you're our final caller.
Thanks,
Well,
Mo.
thank you, Mo, so much.
you're welcome.
Yeah, have a great night. Any final business?
You know, I think I've got everything. Matt, did you have anything you wanted to add to this wonderful evening?
No, I just wanted to say thanks for having me on because most of this, I can talk about shit I've experienced and what I think about stuff, but it's not like Matt's ever been known as like a sex expert.
Or sexpert.
Sexpert.
As we're known in the biz.
See, if I was, I would have known that.
Right.
And I didn't, so I'm not. No, but this has been great. And, some other time I'll come back and bullshit about more topics I don't really know.
We'll
we
definitely
look forward to that.
And to everybody who joined us on the chat, to everybody who called in, to everybody watching, we just really want to thank you. We want to remind you, of course, about the ACA newsletter and as always, magazine. Yeah. And, as always, whether it's to a cartoon, whether it's
To a lamppost.
or
Or to nothing.
or to nothing at all. We want to encourage everyone to go and give yourself a big ol' orgasm, or better yet, give someone else
an
one.
orgasm.